Gentlemen, welcome on in. It is time again for Fantasy Daily. It is Friday night going into Saturday morning whenever you are watching this. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We are gearing up for week 3. We have got an intense week of fantasy football that is about to hit us. So we got to be prepared. I've been gone a little while again, like I said on my last show, trying to get acclimated to my new schedule. Finally got myself a little bit more of a decent schedule at my other job, you know, the side hustle that we do every now and then. Finally got that job kind of situated where next week I'll be able to really get into here, so I'm excited. I'm finally, back into the swing of things. I got all my things lined up and in order. A lot of work that goes on into this, so it's difficult for me to actually, say, hey, I'm going to do one every single day and then actually be able to go through with it when family and work and whatnot gets in the way. But we are back. We are ready to go, and I am very excited because today's a big show. Today is trade talks and panic alerts. The players you've been looking at, the players that you've been worried about, players sitting on your roster where you're going, what do I do with this? Or players that you're maybe looking at throughout the league, kind of, over the shoulder of a different league mate who may be having concerns with one of their players. You're wondering if you can cash in to get a player right now that's going to return value later on. So we are talking trade talk and panic alerts today. As always, we have a great show for you. As always, I am your host, NathanPaswell. Go ahead and follow me at Fantasy Daily Football on TikTok, at NathanPaswell _ at NPaswell on Twitter, and at Fantasy Daily _ on Instagram. Sorry, I forgot those. You'll see them all pop up. You don't need me to introduce them. Let us get right into it because we got a big show here today, and I want to be able to touch upon these players in a manner that you'll be able to really kind of walk away from this going, okay, I have some sort of, kind of feeling of it's not the end of the world. So let's talk about our 0-2 teams, okay? A lot of 0-2 teams that I've talked to this week. A lot of people, the people who have reached out to me, I appreciate you guys so much. But the 0-2 teams, you're scared, you're embarrassed, you're off on an island. You know that your friends they started a whole other group text message chat just to talk about how bad you are, and you feel like you deserve it because you're 0-2. Now listen, this year had some crazy twists and turns already, all right? No running back scored 20 points last week. Wild. So it's difficult to get acclimated when it comes to these things. Some people get hit, some players are hits, some players aren't. You might be stuck with a lot of not hit players right now, and you're just feeling like I need to overhaul this whole team before it goes off the rails. But I want you to really look around your league, all right? Really look at the team structures around your league before you panic. How many teams, now there's probably 1 or 2 super teams in your league that really just got a lot of hits. I know in most of my leagues, I have at least 1 or 2 super teams that are just massive hits, all right? You just need to get into playoffs, all right? You don't need to make a championship team right now. You need to make structure, that way you can make it into the playoffs, then knock off that, juggernaut of a team that just seemed to not be able to be beat. Trust me, I've had a lot of those juggernaut teams in my past where I've been in leagues and they're like, there's no way Nathan's not winning. I steamroll through the playoffs, I get to the last game, I lose the last game, and I'm not champion. So you are always in it as long as you can get to playoffs. So that is your focus. You're not trying to build a team of superstars. So when you're trading, you're out there. Don't try to be Golden State. Don't try to acquire all the golden pieces and all the best pieces. You got to look kind of in between the lines, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So make sure you're looking at your league structure. There's probably teams out there who scored 100 one week and then they scored 120, or they scored 121, then they scored close to 200 the next week in full PPR, depending on your scoring format. But the ebbs and flows of this year are all over the place. So if you are 0-2, if you're scared, you're embarrassed, it's okay to be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed too in my 0-2 leagues, but it's fine because I know I'm good. I know I got plenty of time. I'm just looking for that top 6 spot, depending on your league format. And I know there's a lot of potential to come through. So there's a lot of potential for you as well. Let's talk about the quick points that could get us up there. And like we said, you need to set a structure for your team. Biggest thing for me that you hear me talk about during the offseason is setting structure for your team. You don't need 1,000 good wide receivers on your team when you have 1 or 2 good ones. You can take a flyer like Garrett Wilson, put him on your bench and feel good about it because you know you have 2 wide receivers that are really holding you down. You can play with that flex play, that wide receiver 3 play, and it gives you a lot of luxury when it comes to play in the waiver wire. Same with running back, except running back is a little bit more difficult to get. So you really want to have those two staples up there. I'm not really the one to have one and then maybe another one. I really want two staples. And there's a lot of players out there, a lot of teams out there right now that have no staples. We'll talk about that. I won't leave you hanging. So analyze your team needs. This year is very, very good for quarterback, fortunately. A lot of great quarterbacks out there. You should have one on your own. Hopefully, if you didn't, you maybe lost Dak, you got Wentz, or you got Tua. Take a look at them. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck streaming, but it's still not that bad of a year for streaming. I think that you could have picked up Goff last week, and he put up 16 for you. So it's really not the worst year for quarterback. So if you are in that position, if you're 0-2, you're worried, don't acknowledge quarterback at all. You should be okay at quarterback. If not, there should be options for you to stream where it's really not end of the world. If you're in a super flex league or a 2-quarterback league, then you're a little bit more like, all right, what do I grab down here? And you got to kind of take a flyer, but I'm willing to bet you at least have one that you feel good about. So it's a really good year for quarterback. This is why we don't take quarterbacks in the draft early on, because you can get somebody like Tua, Jimmy G, and Joe Flacco, who are leading the league in, I'm sorry, I said Jimmy G because I'm staring at it. Flacco, or yeah, even Jimmy G. You can go get Jimmy G right now. But Flacco, Tua, and Wentz are leading the league in passing yards right now. You know what I mean? Like everybody predicted. So that's why you don't draft quarterback early, because that stuff can happen. You can buy in on those guys on your team if you have them, especially if you're in a super flex league. But me personally, I really don't go looking for quarterback, and this is especially a good year for quarterback. So I'm not going to go out of my way to trade or acquire or even look at that as a part on my team that I'm worried about. QB should be easy to fill. So focus on your running backs and wide receivers. If you don't have a valuable tight end, you are stuck streaming. I hope you got Gerald Everett. If Tyler Higbee is still out there, go ahead and grab him. But you're going to be stuck tight end streaming, and that doesn't feel great. Hopefully, when we're talking about trades, maybe you can slip a tight end in there or kind of treat it like a wide receiver where you can have some consistency. But if you're grabbing somebody like Mark Andrews, if you're grabbing somebody like Travis Kelce, it's going to cost you basically everything you got. It's not worth it. So you really have to have a strong amount of depth in order to acquire one of those. I am not one of the people who will go out and try to acquire a player like that. I'd much rather take my chance on Gerald Everett and just kind of see what happens. Maybe I'll even grab Higbee and I'll stream the two. I feel very, very good about that instead of going to get, George Kittle, one of those guys. I'm not going to take the chance on that. So if you are streaming, by the way, since we're here and we're talking about tight end, take a look at Tyler Conklin. I do believe that he is a good streamer this week. Moving on to running back and wide receiver, those are your most pressing needs and the biggest assets that you're going to need on your team. So really assess those more than anything. Quarterback, you don't really have to worry about. Tight end, you can figure out. But running back and wide receiver are the ones that you should always be worried about. So let's talk about that some more, because it is the year of the wide receiver. So we've been talking about it a while. Everybody, not on the show, but, kind of in your group of friends or whatnot. Obviously, the league is moving towards a more passing-friendly league. They basically nerfed the defense, for safety, but it's allowed the wide receivers and offenses to just put up friggin' astronomical numbers and just kind of go crazy every single year, which is fun. It's great for us to watch. They like the entertainment value. We like the entertainment value. But the NFL wants to throw, and we're seeing the results of that. There's vast wide receiver depth this year, and there is little to no running back consistency. Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, both the only two to finish with 32 this week. They finished at 1-2. The next closest was Pollard at 19-8. Now, that's a big gap for running back, so that's also the fact that nobody else on the teams that you're playing against is getting their return on investments on running back one, just like you are. Maybe you got him last week with Jonathan Taylor, but the consistency is not there with your running back ones that you drafted like it is with your wide receiver ones that you drafted. Maybe Justin Jefferson aside. Don't worry about Justin Jefferson. That's a much different story. But currently, no first-round running back currently has 2 top 10 finishes. They only have 1 or they have none. So currently, no running back that was going in that first round has them. In fact, only 3 players have 2 top 10 finishes. So only 3 players have the consistency at that position. That is DeAndre Swift, who you hear me going crazy about, Austin Eckler, who you hear me kind of just, we all agree on Austin Eckler. You don't really hear me going on crazy about Austin Eckler. Everybody loves Austin Eckler. And one more player that we will talk about soon. Spoiler alert, you better stay tuned to hear what that third player is that has had 2 top 10 finishes, because we're going to be talking about him. But let us move on to our trade talk and panic alert section. So I just realized now that my graphic kind of makes it seem like I have two different sections, but it's the same thing. It's trade talk because you're panicking about it. So you see how I did that? That's probably not the best way to do it, but that's what's going to happen tonight. So we're talking about trades based on your panic alerts and where you feel about players, and players that I have been talking about, I have gotten questions about, maybe even players I've acquired about or have been offered to me in trades where you can kind of see that it's on the horizon that they're worried about this player. So let us get into my first player. We are going to be talking about Derrick Henry, Titans running back, Mr. King Henry, absolute phenom, finished as the running back 9 last year without even playing an entire season because he was that amazing. Now, let us talk about the fact that Derrick Henry in the first 2 weeks only has 2 first downs and looks really bad on this Titans offensive line, behind this offensive line. 8.2 finish, 8.5 finish. Really looks like a bad consistency bad floor to have for somebody like Derrick Henry, considering the draft price that you paid for him, right? I understand that, but the way that this schedule opens up for Derrick Henry, he absolutely is a trade target for me. He is somebody that I have been, kind of kicking the wheels on in a couple different leagues on how do I get Derrick Henry. In one league, I have Derrick Henry where I drafted him. I've gotten a couple offers for him, and I'm like, I don't really want that. I kind of want to see what happens this week. So let's talk about both sides of the scale on this, okay? Let's pretend that you are the Derrick Henry manager. If I am the Derrick Henry manager, which I am in one league, I am hanging on to him. I will shop the offer. I will shop him so people know that, okay, I'm willing to trade him. He has the big high price name just to see what I get. But I'm not flaunting that I'm trading him. You know what I mean? You don't want to have the panic alert on Derrick Henry. You want to be cool, man. You want to be chill as a cucumber. It's Derrick Henry, man. The first 2 weeks, they got to play Buffalo. Whatever. Maybe Giants are a pretty good defense that week. Whatever. Don't care. I'm just going to keep rolling with it. You gotta have that moxie about it, because you don't want to seem like you're trying to unload Derrick Henry, because if he has another down week this week against Las Vegas, which he really should not, this should be an absolute bounce back game for Derrick Henry. If he doesn't have that game, then you're worried, right? So this segment right now of targeting Derrick Henry could go the other way, and that's why that's why I introduced the player side, where if you were the manager first, right? Because this could go the other way next week. But if I am the manager of Derrick Henry, I do want to hang on to him, but I want the league to know, hey, I'm willing to trade this guy just in case somebody brings me a wide receiver or a running back trade that I really, really can't turn down. I'm at least leaving the door open for that, and you do want to, I want to err on the side of caution with Derrick Henry this year. I am very, very worried about the team. I'm not worried about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry can get it done. Not worried about that. I'm worried about what can this team do, and will Derrick Henry be in the position to get 10 touchdowns like he had last year? Because that's really what excels Derrick Henry to a different spot. So I want to hang on to Derrick Henry, but I am acknowledging trades on the other side, hoping that somebody kind of hits me with something that really does change my team, builds up on my structure a little bit more, and gives me a little bit more peace of mind going forward. Now, if you are the player trying to acquire Derrick Henry and you're looking for Derrick Henry, I do think that you can spend up I do believe that you can spend up on him a little bit if you are hurting at running back. So in one league, I have running back. I was very, very on the edge of trading Mike Williams and James Robinson, plus a couple other pieces in exchange, blah, blah, blah. But basically, Mike Williams and James Robinson for Derrick Henry was the bare bones of the trade. And I got cold feet. I want Mike Williams. I want my strong wide receivers. It wasn't a bad trade, but I want my strong wide receivers. And at the end of the day, I really do think, like I said, this is year of the wide receiver. If one team has 3 wide receivers that are just really stacked, and they have that 20-point floor with a 30-point ceiling, I do think that team is going to win out more games and finish better on the season than somebody has 2 good running backs and 1 good wide receiver. Because the consistency for running backs is not going to be there, whereas I believe the consistency for wide receivers this year is really going to continue. You can trust players like Curtis Samuel, Josh Dotson, Terry McLaurin on that team, and we never say that. But I really do think that, like I said, this is, the year of the wide receiver. Running backs are kind of getting, relegated to the side as far as volume goes, and there's really not much you can trust. I know it's only week 2, but I'm still going to buy in on the fact that these wide receivers are consistently doing it. These running backs aren't. And the rule of necessity that we talk about on this show, the rule of necessity made famous by Fantasy Daily, is your guiding factor when it comes to running back. So I don't want to take too much more time on Derrick Henry, but I will summarize by saying if you are the manager, I would like to hang on to him this week. I'm entertaining trades for him. If I am somebody looking to acquire Derrick Henry, I am going to be cautious of my team structure when I'm trading away Derrick Henry. So I could have afforded to lose Mike Williams. I had Courtland Sutton I could have put in my wide receiver 3. That's why I acknowledged it. But the team structure of James Robinson and Mike Williams plus the couple other pieces that we had, I don't think that I could have rebuilt or I could have filled those spots if Derrick Henry were to give me another down game. You see what I'm saying? So if I were to get Derrick Henry, he scores me 10 points. I just lost all that luxury of those other points, plus the fact that I have 2 players that I feel comfortable putting in my lineup. Now I don't know about the third one. So it depends on what you're trading for Derrick Henry, but if the manager is spooked and is willing to say, hey, maybe I'm going to get rid of Derrick Henry, I would definitely acknowledge it, because I do think there are a lot of managers out there right now with Derrick Henry that are getting cold feet and would cash in on a wide receiver 1 and a running back 2 or something like that in exchange for Derrick Henry. And if you have that luxury, you drafted a lot of great wide receivers. We know there's a lot of great late round wide receivers. Then I would do that. And the reason I ramble on that is because I'm going to kind of give the same speech about other players coming soon. So let's get on to our next player. Excuse me. So let's cover our next player. We are talking about Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen, who was a draft sleeper on my show, I guess. I don't remember what it was, so we are going to call it today on Saturday, Friday, whenever you're watching this, a day before game day, most likely. I'm kind of out on Adam Thielen. The consistency right here, 4 targets, 7 targets. Adam Thielen didn't see a target until the third quarter against Philadelphia. I am very, very concerned about the Minnesota Vikings offense outside of Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. And as much as Adam Thielen is that guy, he's going to have weeks. I think we're back to a Tyler Lockett situation with Adam Thielen. And I am not chasing the points of Tyler Lockett. If anybody knows the lore of Tyler Lockett on this show and in Fantasy Daily, and Fantasy Football, he's the guy that you chased more than anybody. He was one of the players where you're always chasing those points and it's never coming. Or if you do put him in, he puts up a bubble. The next week he goes off for 40, so you're like, oh, I can put him in again, and then he puts up 3 points for you. So Tyler Lockett and Adam Thielen really kind of feel like those guys right now where Detroit, they're playing this week. Adam Thielen could blow up. Hang on to him this weekend. If he blows up, I'm trading him away immediately. And I know that doesn't feel great, especially when you're looking at your wide receivers. You probably spent a good late mid-round, 7th, 8th, 6th, whatever it was for Adam Thielen, so you were hoping he could be a flex. So it doesn't feel good that you basically have nothing right there. I'm an Adam Thielen manager in a couple different leagues. So me personally, I feel it just as hard as you guys feel it, but I'm waiting to get rid of Adam Thielen. So that's where I am on Adam Thielen, where in my leagues where I have him, I hope that he has a good week this week. And somebody looks at the targets and says, okay, he had 9 points and then he had a great week. Maybe he scored a touchdown, something like that. So if he breaks the 20-point mark and somebody's willing to take Adam Thielen, even if it's in a package trade, I am looking to unload Thielen because I do not want this roster block on my team. And I talk a lot about roster blocks and how you have somebody like Adam Thielen or Tyler Lockett where you want to play them, then as soon as you get the chance to play them, they hurt your feelings. So we don't want hurt feelings. We want points. Adam Thielen is definitely up there for me as far as somebody that I do want to trade away. And it's not his fault because he is getting open. He's had routes where he looked good, and the team is just not doing it. And it makes me sad right now because I wanted Adam Thielen to be a thing. He started off super hot last year. So it really disappoints me to, say that about somebody that I was so confident in this year, but we always say you got to be like water. I'm not really beholden to any player throughout the season. Maybe CeeDee Lamb, I should probably jump off that wave soon, but I'm not ready yet. I am off the Adam Thielen train though. I am hoping that he has a big week and I can get rid of him from them because I don't see him as much more than, your wide receiver bench option that you flex in or hopefully package trade away. Let us talk about our next player, and he is a trade target for sure for me. And to answer the the question of whatever I said in the other part where who is the third running back that has 2 top 10 weeks, It is Clyde EdwardsHelaire, believe it or not. So Clyde EdwardsHelaire, the person who I made fun of all the time for never going over 21 points, he hits 22 points week 1 for his 3rd time ever in fantasy football, and he follows that up with a 15.8 on very limited work, right? Clyde is in a good position with Patrick Mahomes. Clyde is absolutely a trade target for me because I believe his consistency will be there. I do believe there is more volume coming and more top 10 running back 1 weeks for Clyde EdwardsHelaire. The big name of the game this year for running backs is consistency. How often can you do it? And that's what a big problem is right now at running back for most of you, especially me, is I need a running back who can do it every single week. This isn't a glamorous name. It's not going to cost you Jonathan Taylor Price. It's on a good team, so you're going to have to pay up for it a little bit, but I do believe whatever purchase price that you are going to have to make for a running back of this caliber, it's absolutely worth it. So depending on, you're not giving up a wide receiver 1 or a running back 1 to go get Clyde, but I'm sure somebody somewhere, whoever has Clyde, either is in his flex or if maybe he's in his running back too, I'm still willing to give away a player for that. If I can give away Cordero Patterson and a wide receiver for Clyde EdwardsHelaire, I would do that in a second. So I'm very, very excited about Clyde this week. And when I say that, you're probably going to have to give up a starting wide receiver, not one on your bench. But I do believe that if you are really that desperate on running back where you really have nothing, and Cordero, maybe even be your number 1 right now because your other one's a bust or you went running back 0 for some strange reason, Clyde's that guy for me. Clyde's one of my favorite targets this week for trades, and I really do think that Clyde, his volume will go up, and when the volume does go up, he is going to have massive, massive appeal. So for him to put up 16 points against the Chargers, he's on a very good team. I don't think enough people are talking about what Clyde can do, and he is this year's DeAndre Swift of what was last year's, of what was David Montgomery the year before. So every year we have one of those players, who's it going to be? Clyde's the David Montgomery, former of DeAndre Swift now it's Clyde EdwardsHelaire. So I'm very, very excited for Clyde EdwardsHelaire for the duration of the season, for what's left. Definitely think that if you are running back needy, you should go poke and prod that manager. My next player, I got Courtland Sutton, and the reason I bring this up is because it's coming. We got 7 targets the first week, then 11 targets. I know Judy went down. I don't want to point out the Judy is always injured thing. I feel like every time I bring up Courtland Sutton to somebody, they're like, oh yeah, and Judy's always injured. That's not why you're looking at him. I'm looking at Courtland Sutton because he is that guy. He is him when it comes to Russell Wilson's offense. Russell Wilson absolutely adores Courtland Sutton when it comes to throwing the ball, and I want those targets. This running game will have inefficient weeks. This running game will have these couple weeks, just like we talked about it with running backs. It's not necessarily their fault. It's the team structure, and Russell Wilson took this game away and said, I'm throwing the ball. This team's going to have to throw the ball a lot. They have a good enough offense where they can do it as much as they want. Javonte Williams will still be involved in the passing game. Melvin Gordon will still be involved in the red zone and passing game. So I'm not putting any demerits on those players. I'm saying that this team is going to be in a negative game script. They're going to have to throw the ball. And I do think that Courtland Sutton is that Tyler Lockett piece. And I know I've already said it on the offseason, but I'm saying it again. Target him now. He had 12 points, then 20 points. This consistency but upside is there. Courtland Sutton's going to have a 40-point week this year. I don't know when it's coming, but I'm willing to bet, if there was a Vegas odds for me to bet that prop bet of him scoring 40 fantasy points throughout the season, it's going to happen. He's going to have one game where it's above 40 because he's going to get absolutely lit up with targets from Russell Wilson. So I'm very, very excited for Courtland Sutton. Definitely think that you need to go out and target him. I am a Courtland Sutton manager. I'm not moving him at all. I'm very excited to have him in my wide receiver 2 spot in one league, and I have him in my wide receiver 3 spot in my home league. Feel very good about that. Now, let us move on to my second before last, but my actually true last one, because my first one, or my sixth one, is just a bonus one for you guys that you just don't want to hear me stop talking about, but it's not going to happen. But let's move on to one of my favorite ones of the week, and I will be making a TikTok of this one right after I'm finished done talking about this. This is probably one of the ones where, as I was going throughout my data this week and really kind of teasing out the stuff that I want to look at, I was like, wow, we kind of missed this. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. and it doesn't make you feel good trading for it, but the price is right and the upside is very high, and that's why I like trading for Ezekiel Elliott, because as an Ezekiel Elliott manager in fantasy, I am basically trying to get rid of him. I'm trying to unload him because I don't want the burden. I have Pollard, so I'm like, sure, I'll just ride with Pollard then. I don't really want this Zeke guy on my team. I'd rather turn this into a James Robinson or a wide receiver that I like. I'd rather have a Jahan Dotson than Zeke. I don't really want to do this. So I'm looking at it as I might do that trade in my league. Anyway, so Zeke, the upside is there for Zeke. And what Zeke could be, remember last year, we're like, oh man, he had a down year last year. He finished as the running back 7 last year. The inefficiencies of running back are going to come. So if Zeke is starting off the year with less than 6 points, I think he had 5.8, 5.9 back-to-back weeks. He's starting off 2 seasons with two games with less than 6 points, under 70% snap percentage. That doesn't feel good. That is not going to be Zeke all season. Like I said in the offseason, I think that Zeke really has more appeal throughout the end of the season. He played Tampa Bay, which isn't always fun to play. He played Cincinnati, which looked garbage, in the first week and in that week, because all of Cowboys look garbage. But the schedule opens up and has moments of bright spots for Zeke. So I do believe that what you can get, so I have Adam Thielen on this list. If I can trade Adam Thielen to get Zeke, I absolutely would. I don't think the manager of Zeke is going to do that. But if I can work Adam Thielen and maybe something else in, and this is if I'm desperate for running back, by the way. If you're okay at running back, you're not just trading to get these players. I'm saying if you're in a spot where you really need to make something happen, I don't think there's many other players out there who have the upside of Zeke without the cost of it. I think Clyde EdwardsHelaire has running back 1 upside, but you're going to have to trade quite a bit to get Clyde EdwardsHelaire because whoever drafted him feels like they got a hit right now. They might not be looking at it as running back 1 hit, which I do believe that it could be because of the consistency. I think that Clyde could finish in the top 10 at the end of the year because of how consistent he can be and because of the team. But I think that Zeke doesn't get it going later on. So Zeke probably going to finish somewhere around running back 12 at the end of the year if he can get it going. But the weeks that he does get it going, you're going to be really, really glad that you paid, a lesser price in order to get him. So I'm very, very excited. Not very excited. I'm very, very interested in looking at the Zeke manager, seeing what they need. Maybe I can make a, kind of lowball trade and see if they take it, because the Zeke manager just kind of wants to be rid of him. And especially if the Zeke manager already has him on his bench, like if he's already decided, dude, I'm not even trusting you in my lineup, and you can see it Sunday morning that he's already put somebody else in his running back position. He said, I'm just not even going to trust Zeke. Go look at it, because he might need a wide receiver or a tight end that week that you can afford to give up. And on a whim, he says, yeah, screw it, just get rid of him. And then you got Zeke. So, no harm, no foul. You're not giving up a wide receiver that's going into your lineup. You're giving a bench piece. You're doing a bench swap for Zeke, who could be a running back 1 on any given week if the team gets out of their own way. So, and Dak's going to come back. So I think that Zeke is a very, very good one for anybody out there who is really, really running back desperate and maybe is scared to trade high on somebody. So I think Zeke is perfectly priced. Now, my last one, which is just a bonus, and it's because I'm telling you, this guy is going to go Super Saiyan, and it's last call. Obviously, last call was last week because he went off. But it is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know he just put up 40 points, but if you can somehow get somebody in your league, somebody somewhere thinks it's just 2 big games. Somebody somewhere looks at Amon-Ra St. Brown and is like, oh, maybe Detroit is, it's Detroit, whatever. I'm not going to trust them. Somebody somewhere out there is doing that. So I know it's going to sound stupid. People are going to be like, oh, nobody's trading for Amon-Ra. Somebody out there will, and somebody out there will give up on Amon-Ra for way less than his price. Amon-Ra is right next to Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson for me this year. And I know that's probably a lot. It's not. Amon-Ra is that guy. I said it a lot in the offseason about how his snap percentage wasn't there. 24 targets in the last 2 weeks. 24 targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown. This isn't going anywhere. Amon-Ra is that guy. He demands targets. Very, very excited for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I can't say enough good stuff about him and how much I want to acquire him as, anywhere I can. So those are my picks for tonight. We got Derrick Henry, who you are targeting depending on your team structure. You got Adam Thielen, who you're trying to wait, hopefully. I'm trying to trade him away, but if he has a good week this week because I can't trade him away, I'm trading him away immediately off of that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, one of only 3 top 10 players in back-to-back weeks. Love Clyde. You should go get him. Courtland Sutton, love him as well. His price is perfect for somebody who could turn into a wide receiver 1. Ezekiel Elliott, very, very cheap. You can throw him on your team and hope for the upside if you need running back. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is our new boo. He's been my boo all offseason if you follow me, so hopefully you followed that. You got Amon-Ra. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I will be back tomorrow with the Sunday breakdown, and then Sunday morning I will be live on TikTok and YouTube, so y'all can hang out with me and get the start sits. How about that, YouTube? I can go YouTube live now. I appreciate y'all for us hitting 50 subscribers. We're now at 52, so now we can go live on Sundays. Sunday mornings I can hang out with you guys here, and we can do a little bit of fantasy football start sits. Thank y'all so much for tuning in as always. Have a good night. Take care.